Democrats aren't just concerned about how this directly impacts Donald Trump. They're also concerned about the long-term impacts of this immunity decision. What have you learned about how the White House and congressional Democrats, what they're considering to do now in light of this ruling?
Yeah, it's very much a fluid situation, Ryan. They're discussing a variety of options. They have not made final decisions. But here's what White House spokesman Ian Sams told me, quote, "We are reviewing the decision and certainly will be exploring what could be done to address it to better safeguard democracy and the rule of law in the future given this dangerous precedent," unquote. Now, whether that's legal memos, calling for court reforms, a push for ethics legislation, new policy ideas, that is all still TBD. And here on Capitol Hill, Democratic leaders have reacted with outrage without outlining a specific plan of action. Senator Chuck Schumer, the majority leader, calling this a disgraceful decision by the MAGA Supreme Court. Those are his words. Senator Dick Durbin, the chair of the Judiciary Committee, said it strips the Justice Department of its longstanding independence. Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader in the House, promises aggressive oversight and legislative activity with respect to the Supreme Court. That would be presuming he becomes Speaker. And then there's some other scattered responses. Senator Tina Smith tweeting today, "Expand the court," referring to legislation that's popular on the left that would add 4 seats to the Supreme Court, in their view, rebalancing that conservative tilt. Congresswoman AOC, tweeting that the Supreme Court is embroiled in a corruption crisis, said she intends to file articles of impeachment upon her return. We have reached out to her team, and she has not yet said who those articles of impeachment would be about, Ryan. And of course, they're not going anywhere in the near term. This is all about trying to find some message to channel the anger that Democratic base voters feel about this ruling.
So, Marcos, let's turn to you now. From your perspective, what options does the Biden administration have?
This is a clear separation of powers issue right here. As we've just heard, you've heard congressional members talk about some of the oversight options they might have. You know, normally when we see oversight, especially like in the Jan 6 committee or in the Judiciary Committee, you see with oversight of the White House or of key agencies. And now we're starting to see more talk about oversight of the judiciary. The problem is you have to have a majority in the House as well as White House coordination to make anything happen. And those options could be, you know, adding numbers to the court, as we saw the senators say, or creating term limits or age limits on the Supreme Court. But there's honestly a lot of different rules that the Constitution grants Congress the ability to impose on the Supreme Court. But the key problem is, like it is with legislation, you kind of have to have a majority as well as the White House all on the same page to make those come to fruition.
Is it also a precedent issue as well? I mean, the Congress is used to oversight of the executive branch. There just hasn't really been that much oversight of the judicial branch, right?
Not in recent history, but if you go back and look at historical history, right, there's been the creation of district courts. There's been adding numbers to the Supreme Court. So there has been oversight that comes directly from Congress over the judiciary, just not really in recent history. You can even do, you know, oversight over the jurisdiction of the types of cases that the Supreme Court can hear. Congress has that power as well. Now, it would be litigated if they went that route, and it hasn't been done, like I said, in recent history, but Congress does have that power.
All right, so Marcus, I want to ask you also about this report from the Washington Post that the Justice Department plans to pursue the criminal cases against Donald Trump past Election Day. Even if he wins, they believe the department rules against charging or prosecuting a sitting president wouldn't really kick in until he's inaugurated in January. Do you agree? What do you think?
I agree. You're not a sitting president until, you know, July or January 20th of 2025. That's when, if former President Trump were to win this election, that's when his presidency would take effect. He can't make any decisions over DOJ or any other agencies until that day. And so I do agree with that notion that, you know, the special counsel can continue through January of 2025. It feels like the same issue we had on the Jan 6 committee, where we kind of had a feeling the House was going to flip. And so, you know, the time is going to run up. And we continued our investigation all the way through, you know, the next Congress as well. If you recall, we had a hearing in December of 2022, I believe, right? So you run up until the end of the clock when there's a change in administration or a change in the House leadership, and you investigate as if, you know, you're still in power, because you technically are.
That would be potentially chaotic, though, would it not?
I don't see how it would be chaotic. Your Department of Justice, you're still continuing as is. Your boss is still President Biden and the Department of Justice. And so you're continuing to litigate until you have a new person in charge who's then telling you that they don't want to continue the investigation. So, look, it can create, I'm sure, a media spectacle of some sort. But when it comes to the legal premise of what they're doing, it's not bizarre in any kind of way.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.